got the notification. That's so bad. I mean, I don't know.
Hi. I'm doing the live stream. Well,
I'm telling her nothing.
Dory wanted me to do it like sideways, but like Facebook Live is really just vertical.
Oh, Allison says she hears me. Hi, Allison. I'm gonna call my mom. My mom sent me a picture.
Okay, I'll just turn it.
Oh, okay. Let me call her. No, maybe unlock her phone.
No, it's like only Facebook Live. Like it has to be vertical. Like there's no other setting.
Can you? Oh, okay. Yeah, she said it's much better.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I heard it too on my phone.
Hello, everyone. I'm talking very loud. Hello, testing, testing. Hi, everyone. We're going to get started in just a minute. Okay, we're going to get started in just a minute. So if I could have everyone spread out this way on the lawn in front of the speaker, please. So everyone here near the entrance, if we could have you guys spread out this way onto the lawn.
Hey. Live streaming.
And we just want to make sure that everyone is staying at least 6 feet apart from everyone else and wearing their mask over their nose and mouth at all times. And we'll just give it about 1 more minute for some more people to sign in, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
No, you're good.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Solidarity Gathering to fight anti-Semitism. I'm Dory Jacobs, and I'm the president of the UConn Hillel Student Board. Firstly, I'd like to remind everyone that you must be wearing a mask over your nose and mouth and remain at least 6 feet away from all others at all times. Everyone also must be sure to sign in over at this table here so that we can have your contact information in case of the unlikely scenario that contact tracing is needed after this event. It is unfortunate that we feel the need to be here today to declare our condemnation of anti-Semitism, but it is inspiring to see how many of you came together to show your pride in being Jewish or support for the Jewish community. The 7 reported anti-Semitic incidents on campus this past year are not isolated incidents. They are part of a worldwide rise in anti-Semitism. This type of prejudice is so hard to combat because of its unique characteristics and duality. Anti-Semites often simultaneously believe that Jews are less than human and that Jews are a part of an elite group secretly controlling the world. It is important to recognize that anti-Semitic incidents may be the result of hatred in the hearts of the perpetrators, but they may also be the result of ignorance. That is why education is so important. Perpetrators may think their actions are somehow funny, or merely enjoy the negative attention from committing such an act. They may not realize the generational trauma that comes with seeing a swastika spray painted on a brick wall. As Jews, it may be in part our responsibility to educate others on our experiences, religion, and culture. But I do not believe that as students, it is our job to fight for safety on our own campus. The Jewish students here today could each recount a multitude of instances of anti-Semitism they have either faced or witnessed. Each one both eats away at our confidence in overtly displaying our Jewish identities and also strengthens our pride in the Jewish community for persevering through thousands of years of prejudice. The last 3 anti-Semitic incidents that occurred on campus were committed during the Jewish holiday of Passover, which celebrates and relives the story of Jews' escape from slavery. The The timing of these incidents hits Jewish students so hard. I cannot fully express my gratitude and amazement in seeing so many allies here today to declare that anti-Semitism is never acceptable and has no place at UConn. We will now move down our list of speakers and will then allow others from the audience not currently on our speakers list to say a few words. Before I introduce our next speaker, I need to go over some etiquette. All speakers must keep their masks on the entire time they are speaking, and the microphone must be disinfected with wipes between every speaker. Speakers need to keep their language work appropriate, and any dialogue, particularly if it includes demands you have of the university, must remain extremely respectful. I'd also like to remind everyone that you must be wearing a mask over your nose and mouth and remain at least 6 feet away from others at all times. Everyone must also be sure to sign in at this table over here so that we can have your contact information in case of the unlikely scenario that contact tracing is needed after this event. All right, so the first speaker I'd like to introduce today is President of the University, Thomas Katsoulias.
Thank you, Dory. Thank you all for coming out. I'd like to also acknowledge Allison Zweig for her contribution to organizing this event. So events like this rally, are so important. It's important for all of us to speak out each and every time there's an attack on members of our community. And there have been a number of those recently. It's important because those who commit these heinous acts need to know that we won't tolerate them. They need to know that we will call them in and call them out each and every time. It's also important for those who are victims of these attacks to know that they have our support and our love. And so I thank all of you for coming out today and joining in that very, very important effort. It's particularly important at a university like ours that we underscore our values as a university, and those include truth and equality and respect. And of course, our mission makes it that much more important as well. We have the mission of education, and education is the key to undermining the misperceptions that underlie bias and bigotry. And it's also the key to teaching history and reminding us never to forget the lessons of history, lest we let this kind of bias go unchecked and we go there again. So for all those reasons, I'm really grateful you're here. I'm going to just wrap up with a quote from Martin Luther King that you probably all know very well. And he said that the arc of history bends towards justice, but it's up to all of us to make it bend. And I know that working together, we can work towards making this a better university and a better world. So thank you all for coming, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Okay, so the next speaker I'd like to welcome is Judy Alperin, CEO of the Jewish Federation Foundation and JCC of Greater New Haven, who we are so grateful to have here with us today.
Good afternoon. I want to thank UConn President Katsoulias, Executive Director Adina Ostreicher, and Hillel President Dory Jacobs for your leadership of the UConn Jewish community amidst so many challenges, and to thank my fellow speakers for lending their voices today. As if UConn students, faculty, and staff didn't have enough to contend with as COVID has disrupted your academic experience, you all should be able to live, work, study, worship, and play in an environment free from hate. I wanted to be here with you today so that you all know that you are not alone. There are many, many people throughout Connecticut and beyond standing in solidarity. We will continue to raise our voices and speak out against the forces of hate. As this Hillel has loudly proclaimed, enough is enough. Recently, I had the honor of speaking at a gathering in New Haven to speak out against the rising hatred perpetrated against the Asian American Pacific Islander community. And what I told them sadly applies today. Commandments received by Moses at Mount Sinai, but it should have been. It's been such a long year for all of us, and the pandemic has certainly impacted and hurt people differently. The divisive rhetoric, tribalism, and scapegoating that was unleashed prior to the pandemic and fueled during this pandemic has brought us all to this moment. It is critically important that we come together at gatherings like this to stand up and speak out. And that when you are confronted with ugly symbols of hate or accosted with vitriolic speech, that you respond. If you see something, say something. This will not end until we hear the voices of more good people proclaiming love over hate, kindness over enmity, peace over persecution. This horrible climate that we are all living in must end, because it is what leads to the increasing xenophobia, bigotry, and white supremacy. And we know that that's what leads to hate-fueled killings, like what we saw in Charleston, Charlottesville, Pittsburgh, El Paso, Atlanta, and so many other places. In 2019, the FBI reported a record number of hate crime murders, a crisis deeply felt in the Jewish community, as we have confronted an alarming rise in anti-Semitic hate crimes since 2017. All identity-based attacks don't just injure the victims, they terrorize entire populations, because that is what is their intent. So as Jews, we know that freedom and safety for any of us depends on the freedom and safety of all of us. And it's up to all of us. Each of us must take the time to get to know one another. In order to build a truly inclusive society, we must do it together from the ground up. So that to the UConn community, we stand with you.
All right, so it's time for another reminder that you must be remaining at least 6 feet apart from everyone surrounding you, and also to make sure that you've signed in at this table over here so that we have your contact information in case contact tracing is needed after the event. We're so grateful to have been able to hear from Judy Alperin, and now we have the honor of introducing David Warren, who is the CEO of Jewish Federation of Greater Hartford.
Thank you, Dory, and thank you all for coming. President Katsoulias, thank you for being here and for your strong moral voice. Dina, Dory, and the entire leadership of Hillel, thank you. And the leadership of Chabad is here as well. I want to recognize and thank you for your important work as well. And Dory, it was just 2 weeks ago that you were on a panel for a federation talking about campus anti-Semitism, and we really thought that this issue had been sort of addressed, right, with finality, at least for this year. And here we are again after 4 more incidents. There's a quote that comes to mind that I've literally been talking about for the last 20 years as I talk about anti-Semitism, and it only becomes more relevant. So bear with me for a moment. In October of 2001, which is when we began to see an explosion of anti-Semitism across the country and across the world, Jonathan Rosen, a writer for the New York Times, wrote the following. He wrote an essay, and he opened it with the following paragraph. When I was growing up, my father would go to bed with a transistor radio set to an all-news station. Even without a radio, my father was attuned to the menace of history. A Jew born in Vienna in 1924, he fled his homeland in 1938. His parents were killed in the Holocaust. I sometimes imagine my father was listening for some repetition of past evils so that he could rectify old responses. But he may just have been expecting more bad news. In any event, the grumbling static from the bedroom depressed me, and I vowed to replace it with music more cheerfully in tune with America. These days, however, I find myself on my father's frequency. I have awakened to anti-Semitism. That was 2001. In the last 2 decades, we've witnessed an explosion of anti-Semitic rhetoric and bias incidents from the right, fueled by hate groups, often the anonymity of the internet, and from the left in the classic form of anti-Semitic canards and conspiracies often targeting the Jewish state. Yet here in the U.S., we had not experienced, at that point, 2001, any sustained violence. That changed 2 years ago, with shootings in Pittsburgh, Poway, Jersey City, and Muncie, and violent attacks over and over again on Jews in the streets of New York City and elsewhere. Jews are asking, understandably, am I safe engaging in Jewish life? Am I safe on the street, in the subway, in the grocery store, in synagogue? In response, we stand in solidarity today with leaders from across this campus and across this state on 24 hours notice to address security needs, combat anti-Semitism and extremism, and ensure that this campus community remains safe, inclusive, and welcoming for all of its residents. Good friends, and they're here today, recognize that anti-Semitism is not just a Jewish problem, doesn't just affect the Jewish community, and that they are critical partners. Dory talked about that. That was the most important thing. When people asked Dory, what can we do to combat anti-Semitism on campus? Dory said the most important thing is to reach out and be allies to others and have them stand up with us as allies. The Jewish Federation of Greater Hartford will soon be inaugurating a new security initiative that will encompass Hillel and will provide training, security assessments, law enforcement relationship initiatives, and securing of funding. And we'll be working very closely with Adina, Dory, and others in the coming weeks and months on that. But more important today, the measure of a community is not whether these incidents occur, because these incidents can and do occur on any campus, on any community, in corporations. They do and will happen. The measure of a campus, the measure of this campus is not whether these incidents happen. The measure of this campus is how good people respond. Standing with all of you here this afternoon, there is no question that we have the capacity and the will to confront and overcome this resurgent virus of hate with unabashed pride, confidence, and determination. Thank you. I'd also like to introduce a good friend and partner, the director of the ADL in Connecticut, Steve Ginsburg, who's been working with us closely on our security initiative and has been monitoring more than any other organization anti-Semitism across this campus. Stephen.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Dory. Just a couple things, because I know we've got a bunch of people who are going to share stories and messages with you. I just wanted you to know I'm so proud of the students who led this, because at ADL we know that it doesn't happen without leadership in the local community. Whatever that community is, you can be the voice. Right now, as a national organization and out of our Connecticut office, we're looking at things like the really big picture, like measuring hate online, including anti-Semitism and racism, Islamophobia, homophobia. Those numbers are really, really disturbing. We just released a report a couple weeks ago. Almost half of people who responded to our survey indicated that they felt they received some form of harassment last year online. That dialogue, that discourse turns into on-the-ground problems. It fuels extremism, it fuels hate crimes, it inspires people, and we are the ones who together can push back against that by pressuring the social media companies, by working to form allies and friends and upstanders right here in our community. There's a lot we can do. You're already doing it, and we're just proud to be here to help you. Thank you very much. Reach out to ADL anytime you need us. Thanks.
All right, so the next speaker that I'm introducing is Ben Back, who is president of the Huskies for Israel Club, and he's going to give a statement of support from the club.
All right. like to first start off by thanking everyone for coming here. I really appreciate all the support. Anti-Semitism is a form of hatred that can be traced back to ancient times, and it is considered the oldest form of hatred. What's special and ultimately most dangerous about anti-Semitism is that it's fluid. It changes and mutates to whatever the current religious or contemporary dilemmas society faces. Ever since the rise of Christianity and other religions and the Jewish diaspora, from the Middle Ages all the way to the Renaissance, Jews have been persecuted against. Many libels were placed against them for acts that are deplorable. They have been accused of growing horns, and more commonly, they have been called greedy, stingy penny pinchers. What's worse is that these comments and these sentiments are still very prevalent and very much alive today. During the first half of the 20th century, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime considered us an inferior race. As a result, 6 million Jewish people were stripped and stolen of their own lives. And now the Holocaust is known as one of the worst genocides in recorded history. Now, in this 2020-2021 academic year, UConn has unfortunately been a part of 7 different anti-Semitic events on campus. 7. I don't know about you guys, but for me, that's too many. 7 too many. As a student, I should not expect nor accept the fact that these incidents go by, unwarranted and unjustified. We as Jewish students can only do so much to address this anti-Semitism, and I know that we cannot do it alone. This is why I asked UConn to help us in this fight. I would like to see real change in the way we react to anti-Semitism before I leave this university. I want students to learn what anti-Semitism really is, how it affects our society, how to combat it at its source. As a Jewish person growing up in an Israeli family, I've had unfortunate events in my life that were anti-Semitic, and I knew early on that I would have to deal with this stuff later on in life, but I never expected that a community such as UConn would deal with the same thing at a larger scale. I hope the one thing that comes out of this is that you all learn to love each other. I know that with us at HFI, the student board at Hillel, and the rest of the UConn community will not stand for this injustice. I hope that we can finally come together, work together, and protect our pack. Thank you.
Okay, so it's time for another reminder that you must be wearing a mask over your nose and mouth and remain at least 6 feet away from others at all times, and to also make sure that you're signed in over at this table here to make sure that we can reach you if contact tracing is needed after the event. Our next speaker is Gianna Michelson, who is currently serving as an intern for Hillel and creating educational materials on anti-Semitism.
Hi everyone. Thank you to all of you who came out today. I don't know what we expected, but this is definitely exceeding our expectations. It's great to have everyone here. My name is Gianna Michelson, like Dory said. I'm a senior, and I've been a part of the Jewish community at UConn for all 4 years that I've been at this school. So all my friends who have spoken before me and who are going to speak after me have said and will say really incredible things, but I want to use my time on this platform to highlight one particular piece of this puzzle that is the Jewish experience and the experience of anti-Semitism on college campuses. This is Jewish marginalization in activism. So, Tikkun Olam. That is the value that translates to repair the world. And I'm sure that if you were here and you're Jewish, you'd probably roll your eyes hearing that value once again, because it's so commonly used to motivate us to do good in our communities. So this actually was what drew me into social justice to begin with. So when I was in high school, it was through this value that I was first introduced to the idea of social justice, and my Jewish friends were the ones who were the most outspoken against hate, were taking trips to DC to lobby against gun violence, and were encouraging me to think more deeply about my own privilege. You can only imagine the frustration and confusion when Jewish students arrive to their universities and quickly learn just how difficult it can be to be Jewish and to be in activist spaces. Sometimes this could be due to the polarization that comes with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that weaponized against the Jews, assuming that a person cannot possibly be sympathetic against Israel if they support any other cause. So sometimes, I think more often at UConn, we can see that it's as simple as collective activism forgetting about or ignoring Jewish issues that might not be making it into the news. To the members of minority communities who are present here, we did not forget you. We stood by you. I do not need to cite the many events that UConn Hillel has put on in solidarity with communities who have faced hate. It is in our values, it is in our Torah, and it is in our blood to do so. We were your allies, so be our allies. Accept our invitations to partner with us. Take a step further and invite us to partner with you. Learn our history, share our culture, use your platforms to share our story. Do not end your activism with what's trending on Twitter or what you see on Instagram. Remember what activists called us all to do as Black Lives Matter was transforming our nation? Educate yourself, pay attention, listen to Jewish voices, elevate Jewish voices, invite us into your activist spaces. I hope that UConn does not become another university that allows anti-Semitism to be politicized and consequently lost. When this has happened at schools across the nation, when conversations about anti-Semitism inadvertently, or worse, intentionally, are drowned out by condemnations of Israel, you erase our pain, our suffering, our story. Allow ourselves the dignity and the autonomy to speak our truths, and most importantly, to define for ourselves what we consider hatred against our people. We do not attempt to tell you what is racist or xenophobic, and God knows if you are not a woman, you should not try to tell someone what is sexist or misogynistic. So, allow us to educate you on what threatens us, what marginalizes us, and what perpetuates our suffering. In truth, the collective memory of the Jews is intimately familiar with slavery in Egypt, with forever being seen as the other, with institutionalized discrimination, and with ethnic cleansing. To my Jewish friends around me, I believe that this is what makes us such great activists. We do not want to watch others go through our pain. So no matter if nothing changes and we are still left out of these progressive spaces, I hope this will not discourage you from continuing to fight for these causes that I know reach down to the very core of who you are. Continue to be that ally and do your part to steer others away from the suffering that we all know too well. On a more positive note, here is something tangible that we can do together. In partnership with UConn Hillel and through my human rights minor, I'm producing a video series on anti-Semitism that I'm imploring the university to utilize. Maybe this is in bias training for students and faculty. Maybe at orientation for incoming freshmen who may someday witness a car drive by a Jewish student yelling anti-Semitic slurs. To the faculty members and RAs who may be approached by a Jewish student saying that a swastika was drawn on their doors. To USG members who receive no bias training upon their election, but someday might see anti-Semitic legislation reach the floor. Despite what the popular narrative may be, our story is not defined by our victimhood. Our perseverance when it all seemed as though all hope was lost is what has truly characterized the last 2,000 years. Ironically, it is often in the face of such hate that our communities, like UConn Hillel, become even stronger. Turn to each other, but also turn outward, and use this anger that we feel to deepen the bridges that we have with the rest of our campus. After 4 years at UConn, I have come to know just how beautiful and powerful this Jewish community here is, and I know that from this point we can only grow. Thank you.
Speaking next is Mitch Cooperstein, an active Hillel member asking for your help with an initiative.
Hi everyone. I want to thank you all for coming out here today. I want to thank all the amazing speakers who come before and all the ones that are coming next. I want to thank Dory for leading Hillel through this, and Jackie and Adina and everybody who was a part of getting this gathering together today. And I want to talk about what we can do going forward. We recently are gathered here today because of the events that have transpired over the course of Passover, the 3 anti-Semitic incidents, which together with the 4 previous acts of hatred against the Jewish people on campus, we have to change how we are approaching things. We've learned and we have taught, but we need to do more. No one is born an anti-Semite. No one is born with hatred in their hearts. Hate is something that is taught. And if hate can be taught, then so can the tools to combat hate. That's why I implore the university to establish a 1 credit course combating anti-Semitism and bias in all its forms. Is this petition that I've started and will be available to sign on the Hillel Instagram page later today. We ask the university establish a course which teaches about the Jewish history, Jewish identity, and Jewish community, to discuss how anti-Semitism and hatred has been on the rise in recent years globally, but also how college campuses have served as a breeding ground for hate. Not just the goal to teach students about what anti-Semitism is, but also how to fight it. We want, at the University of Connecticut, I hope to produce leaders and allies who combat issues that face both them and others, because hatred in all forms is unacceptable. We just came to the end of Passover, a holiday which celebrates the liberation of the Jewish people, our perseverance. And now I hope all of you can work together with me to persevere and fight on, fight to the end of hate. And one step in doing that is establishing this course. I believe it can be a successful way to help the UConn student body be better leaders and more knowledgeable about anti-Semitism. Thank you for coming out here today, and thank you to all the speakers who are coming next.
Next to speak is Sarah Susi, a Hillel intern whose video about anti-Semitism on campus got 6,000 views on Instagram.
So, as Dory said, I'm Sarah Susi. I'm a senior at the University of Connecticut, and I posted a video last week about anti-Semitism on campus that kind of blew up, and I really do want to thank everyone for sharing it and reaching out to me and showing your support for that specifically. So, I am Jewish, and I am not alone when I say that I am unbelievably scared to be a Jew at the University of Connecticut right now. The first reason for this is the rising rates of anti-Semitism in our community. This year we have seen anti-Semitic graffiti on campus, students being harassed and followed for wearing yarmulkes, and an RA was called Nazi police for asking a student to wear a mask properly in uniform. Patterns like this only reinforce the data that despite being 2% of the U.S. population, Jews make up the majority of religious-based hate crimes in this country, and this is only rising in recent years. The second reason that I am scared is that despite months of community action and calls for action, the university has failed to produce any form of sustainable change in combating anti-Semitism. I'll get to a list of specific and concrete actions the university can take in a moment, but first I'm going to explain why this is problematic. Lack of education and ignorance of hate feeds an environment where people feel empowered to express hate and violence. We cannot dismiss these acts of hatred because they aren't bad enough. Every act of anti-Semitism is horrific and traumatic. It is scary that the university has done nothing of substance to address this, because what will it take? Will it take an incident like that in New York City this past week, where a young Hasidic couple and their infant child were all slashed with a knife across their face for being Jewish in public? Will it take a shooting at a place of worship that we've become so desensitized to? Will it become another slew of calls of bomb threats into JCCs and synagogues around this country,
where preschoolers were evacuated rapidly from their classrooms because of so much hate and anti-Semitism. We are worth more than being told to sit and wait behind red tape. We deserve action and recognition and justice and respect. So, I have 6 concrete steps the university needs to take. 1. Acknowledge every anti-Semitic incident that has happened on campus and may unfortunately happen in the future. 2 fluff statements for 7 reported instances when one of those statements came after days of petitioning for an acknowledgement is ignorant and shameful. 2, demonstrate full support of the course being petitioned by Mitch and implement it for the upcoming academic year. And make sure that this education also reaches out to staff, faculty, and police corps members of our community. 3, comply to the request by USG that they have listed for April 9th with accountability measures. 4 is to hire more culturally competent mental health professionals, including therapists and psychiatrists. We don't need more focus groups to sell advocacy efforts. Student mental health and safety has been and will be on the line, and there is a concrete solution that can be easily implemented. 5 is to attend events at campus Jewish organizations. Study Torah with Chabad, light candles for Shabbos with Hillel, sit in on a Hebrew class, Zoom with Huskies for Israel, ask a kid in their birthright shirt what the favorite part of their trip was. I myself am happy to answer any questions about Judaism that I can, but I'm only one person. It is not our responsibility as Jews to educate others who refuse to do so for themselves. Education is the first step in being proactive against anti-Semitism instead of just reactive as the university administration has been. And number 6 is to implement concrete and transparent action and accountability plans in the next month for how both bias instant reporting protocols and instances reported to campus and community police will proceed. Saying that they are only under review is dismissive and insulting to a community who is literally being targeted with violence and aggression, especially when social media posts this past summer testified for the inadequacies of both campus and community organizations in their ability to appropriately respond to hate crimes and other associated events in many marginalized communities. I am so proud to be a Husky and to be graduating from this university, and so thankful for everything I have gained with Hillel and Chabad over these past 4 years. I also know that I and every other Jewish community member here deserves respect, transparency, and safety on this campus. We deserve to be respected for our Jewish identity, no ifs, ands, or buts. We deserve to feel safe in our classes and in our dorms and at our jobs and when we pray. To close, I'd like to share a quote from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. May his memory be a blessing to us all. The quote says, "There is no life without a task, no person without a talent, no place without a fragment of God's light waiting to be discovered and redeemed, no situation without its possibility of sanctification, no moment without its call." This is our moment with call to stand up and act for justice as students, as administrators, as humans, all striving for a better and safer world. Please, to President Katsoulis and the University of Connecticut, please take action and show your Jewish students that we matter and that you support us concretely. Now I'd like to call up someone who is not Jewish, but is an ally who is dedicated to working with UConn Hillel to fight anti-Semitism and all forms of hate on campus. USG President-elect Mason Holland.
Thank you so much for having me here today, and thank you all for being here today. It is a courageous act to stand here in solidarity against violent acts of hate. Do not want to understand. In saying that, I also want to say I understand what this community is going through. As a member of the Black community, we've been subject to some of the same persecution over this past year. And it's difficult to be on a campus where we feel that we are disconnected from one another, we feel that we're out of touch with one another, we feel that hate is welcome here, and we all know that it is not. In saying that, I wanted to say that I support all of you that are here today. I love you all and I respect you all. USG is committed to standing with you all, to advocate with you, to learn from you, and to support you in any endeavor that that you go on forth with. Thank you.
Once again, it's time for my reminder that you must be wearing a mask over your nose and mouth and remain at least 6 feet away from others at all times, and that everyone must also be sure to sign in over at this table in case contact tracing is needed after this event. Our next speaker is another ally who I am certain will do an amazing job working to make UConn an inclusive environment and has already made a great effort to show support for the Jewish community. USG Chief Diversity Officer-elect Michael Christie.
So I come to ask myself, how many times must something happen for action to be taken? We have seen over the past semester alone that this university doesn't have an isolated issue of anti-Semitic propaganda rhetoric, but rather a domestically and rapidly growing tumor of hate towards the Jewish community that has gone unchecked. It is not enough for us to rely on the Jewish community to condemn these incidents on their own. It is not enough to craft general statements condemning these incidents without planned action. It is not enough to be a community that is only reactive when we have the opportunity and resources to be proactive. Within our diverse community here at UConn, we often get lost with what representation means and what effect it can have. While diversity is so critical, it is not enough if we cannot be a community that is inclusive as well. We can invite people to the table, but those voices have no meaning if the chairs are not set at the same height. So while we have, as students, an opportunity to act through our diverse student leadership within this community, we must develop and craft ways in which we can make sure that every voice and every experience is heard and respected at this university. It should not have taken 7 incidents of anti-Semitic attacks for us to be here today calling for action. It is each of our responsibilities as members of this community to ensure that this behavior does not continue. Students, staff, faculty, and administration. It is why the undergraduate student government has called for the UConn administration to release a plan by Friday, April 9th to deal with these acts and prevent further incidents. Furthermore, beginning later this week, USG will begin working with UConn Hillel to develop ways our organization can start being less reactive and more proactive in eradicating the behavior we have seen this semester and provide educational opportunities to the UConn community. I'll be one to admit that I still have a lot to learn, but the beauty of that is that all of us have a lot to learn about each other and how we can be better allies in our individual fights towards seeking liberation from hate. When we can uplift each other, learn from each other, accept each other for who we are, we can be a stronger community in doing the necessary thing we are taught to do coming into UConn, which is to protect each other, or as we say here at UConn, protect the pack. Thank you.
Speaking next is Hannah Pliskin, an active Hillel member, to share her perspective.
Hi. I grew up following Jewish traditions that held beauty beyond what I understood as a child. Of the countless lessons I learned in and out of the classroom at my Jewish day school, some of the most impactful and relevant values that I carry with me each day are Tikkun Olam, which translates to repairing the world, Gemilut Chasadim, acts of loving kindness, and to love others as I love myself. To me, practicing my religion is not limited to communicating with God or whatever higher power you believe in through prayer, but rather embodying and living by the values through acting with intention. I have learned to see the dignity in every life and the limitless potential for good in the world. Because of Judaism, I live with gratitude and compassion. It is much more than just living by the laws of the Torah. Rather, it is acting through the deeper lessons that it teaches us. I'm the person I am today because I grew up surrounded by Judaism, and I am unbelievably grateful for it. I was fortunate enough to attend Jewish school, sleepaway camp, and live across the street from my rabbi. I owe everything I am today and the values I live by to the Jewish community around me. The acts of Judaism I engage in every day were always a part of the culture I lived in. But upon leaving my Jewish bubble, their importance grew to me. It connects me to my community and provides me with comfort. I know that in life I never walk alone, and I am incredibly grateful and proud to be a Jew and live by Jewish values every day. In light of recent events and with Holocaust Remembrance Day being later this week, I want to thank everyone for showing up today and offering support to members of the Jewish community. Elie Wiesel once said, "We must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented." Your presence amplifies the messages we are speaking today. Of the dozens of instances of others trying to suppress the Jewish spirit, it has always prevailed. I love my religion and will always choose to live with pride rather than hide in the face of oppression.
Our next speaker is an ally who was featured on our panel about fighting anti-Semitism on campus last semester, Somia Podu.
Hi everyone, I'd like to start off by saying thank you to the Hillel board for giving me the opportunity to speak today. So last semester, the first couple of anti-Semitic events this year happened in South Campus, where I'm an RA. In response, we were able to have an incredible event called Becoming an Upstander, Not a Bystander. It was a community of people coming together to not only listen to other stories, but to understand how we can take action within our communities to inspire change. But instead of seeing that meaningful change continue throughout the year, and with the lack of help and action from university leadership, we saw more hateful acts of anti-Semitism on campus. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The responsibility of pushing for change and progress doesn't fall on the victims of these hate crimes. As bystanders, we have the privilege of not being on the receiving ends of these hate crimes. And as allies, we have the responsibility of pushing for change to make an equal and safe community for all people on this campus, and especially for our Jewish peers right now. At the risk of being repetitive, I'm going to once again bring up the idea of tikkun olam. Just give me a second. Strangely enough, I'd heard of it first while watching a Grey's Anatomy episode, and then again this morning on a podcast. To my understanding and interpretation, tikkun olam is a Jewish idea that's defined by living through action to fix a broken world. It goes in with the assumption that we live in a broken world. And we've seen that time and time again through systemic oppression against members of our BIPOC communities, violent attacks against members of our AAPI communities across this country, and through 7 acts of anti-Semitism on our own campus. However, as allies, we can exemplify the idea of tikkun olam and use one action at a time to help better a broken campus. You already are just by being here. Thank you for listening and for showing your solidarity. Your being here shows the promise of a better future for our broken campus. Thank you.
Speaking next is Jeff Hayden, current Hillel student board member.
I am a daughter, a sister, a friend, a niece, a cousin. I'm a leader, a student, a mentor, a peer. I'm a girl, an American, a human being, and a UConn student. But I'm also Jewish. While my Jewish identity and values have made me who I am today, I am so much more. So these 7 anti-Semitic acts aren't just hurting Jews. They're hurting the daughters and the sisters and the friends and cousins, hurting the leaders and students and mentors and peers, hurting human beings, and hurting UConn students. I come from a sheltered background, and I went to Jewish school my entire life. UConn is my first experience in the real world. I've always heard that anti-Semitism existed, and I participated in programs on how to stand up to those who hated Jews. but I didn't actually believe that those hate could really exist. I wanted to believe, maybe naively, that if I respected other people's religion, ethnicity, identity, race, that they would respect mine. I also thought that when I chose to come to UConn, that it was a place that values diversity, tolerance, respect, and inclusion. I never thought that I would feel unsafe because of my religion. Before the term Jews was created, the Jewish people called themselves Am Yisrael, meaning the nation or people of Israel. They could have said Dat Yisrael, which means the religion of Israel, but they didn't, because being Jewish is more than a religion. Being Jewish is about people and community, and attacking Jews is hating on a community. Now, I'm a big believer in the fact that everything happens for a reason. And while these 7 acts of anti-Semitism on campus have been awful, hurtful, and have even made me question my own safety, I believe that something good can come from it. This week is Yom HaShoah, the Jewish Holocaust Remembrance Day, where we remember the 6 million Jews who were killed during World War II. And while we recognize and honor the people who lost their lives, it's important to look at the fact that we as Jews are still here. Throughout history, we have survived. We have an opportunity now to teach and remind people that we can't and we won't accept anti-Semitic or hurtful acts of any kind. When I look at how many people here are today to support us, it gives me some hope that my shelter's beliefs can in fact be true. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ryan Moraes, current Hillel Student Board member.
Hello, my name is Ryan Moraes and I am Jewish. My mother is Jewish, both of her parents are Jewish, and their parents lived their lives as Jews. I belong to Temple Sinai. I became a bar mitzvah on May 12, 2012. I belong to a Jewish youth group. I have prayed at the Western Wall. I frequently say the Shema before bed. And 2 Saturdays ago, I said the 4 questions at my family's Passover Seder. Those who are not familiar, it is when we ask, why is this night different from all other nights? In the form of 4 questions. Unbeknownst to me at this time, the 5th and 6th anti-Semitic events of the year were taking place right here at the store's campus. In truth, that night was not so different from all other nights, because this has become way too common. To the perpetrators, yes, you have scared us, but we are here today, and that will never change. Biyachad yad biyad. In Hebrew, that means together, hand in hand. I want you to know how dangerous it is. I want you to know how dangerous it is what you're doing. Even if you mean it as a joke, it leads others to believe that it is acceptable. It is not. Please stop. I serve as the Vice President of Programming on the UConn Hillel Student Board, and on Tuesday night, at our board meeting, we were made aware of the 7th incident and immediately knew that a statement was no longer sufficient. In addition to the statement, we put together this event in less than a week. And if I could just for a minute recognize the rest of the student board and the Hillel staff and everyone who made this possible for the amazing job they did. As an active member of the community, I want to share the most common things I've heard from you. We are scared. We are confused. We want answers. We want it to stop. We want change. We want to feel safe because right now, we don't. To the UConn administration, I know that we have made clear what we want. This will be the only statement I address directly to you. I say again, your students do not feel safe. Please do something about it. Enough is enough. And if I could just add, for me personally, this is the first time in my life where I have felt that I need to start considering whether or not I need to conceal the fact that I'm Jewish. And I never thought that would happen. It's very hard to comprehend what is happening. So I thank everyone for being here today, because it shows that maybe it is a little safer than I thought. If we have this many allies, then that just means a lot. So thank you.
Okay, so it's that time again for me to give a reminder that you must be wearing a mask over your nose and mouth and remain at least 6 feet away from others at all times, and that everyone must also be sure to sign in at this table here so that we can contact you in case contact tracing is needed after this event. All right, so now that we have completed our list of speakers, we want to give a chance for anyone in the audience who would like to say a few words to do so for about 3 minutes each. All speakers must keep their masks on the entire time they are speaking, and the microphone must be disinfected with wipes between every person. Speakers need to keep their language work appropriate, and any dialogue, particularly if it includes demands you have of the university, must remain extremely respectful. When it is your turn to speak, please also introduce yourself to everyone. If you're interested in speaking, please line up along this fence right here and make sure to stay 6 feet apart from anyone else in the line, and we will get to as many people as we can before we conclude at 5 p.m. So I'll give a minute for anyone who likes to speak to go ahead and line up along here, staying 6 feet apart.
Thank you, Dory. And I just want to add to the thanks for all of you for being here, and the many more who are watching on Facebook now. I think it shows a very important message to our students that they have friends and allies, and that people care, and that's so important. My name is Gary Jones. I was the interim executive director of Hillel last year, essentially. And so I just want to say that I know these students. I know how terrific they are, and I think you've all had a chance to find that out as well. But when they talk about there being allies to everyone else, that is the truth. I've seen it in many, many occasions where other communities on campus have been victimized by hate. UConn Hillel and the Jewish students are there for everyone else. So it is so encouraging and so meaningful to see so many of you from other communities who aren't Jewish, who are here to show support for the Jewish community. That is, as it was said before, that is very important too. We don't judge communities by the fact that bad things occur. We judge communities by the fact that always when bad things happen, and show support for the people who are victimized. So what you're doing here is absolutely right. And the UConn Hillel students will continue always to be there for the rest of the community when there are problems in other communities as well. The one other thing I would like to add very briefly is that hate doesn't start by itself. Anti-Semitic incidents don't occur out of nowhere. There is a message being given by some people that hate is okay, or that hate is funny, or that hate is something that's going to make them popular or feel important. So what we can all do as individuals is to make sure that when we see someone saying something nasty about somebody, sort of encouraging other people to engage in bad behavior, bad hateful behavior, we have to stand up. We have to stand up individually to our own community, to our own friends, and say, that is not appropriate. I'm not going to give you any respect for that kind of behavior. And maybe when we all speak up against hate of any kind, mean jokes of any kind, then people will learn there are consequences to that bad behavior and may be less willing to do it. So that's what I encourage everyone here and everyone on Facebook to do. When you hear someone saying anything disparaging about a person, a race, a religion, an ethnicity, an orientation, or anything else, you have to say, that is not appropriate. We are not going to tolerate hate here. So just stand up against hate wherever you see it. Thank you very much.
sophomore at the University of Connecticut. In my freshman year, I myself had experienced an anti-Semitic incident when someone across the hall from me in Grange Hall had posted a picture of a man wearing a uniform with a swastika on it. I had tried to ignore it for many days at first, thinking that they might just be misunderstanding or any other kind of reason. But I realized eventually, after talking with some of my Jewish friends here at the university, that any step of complacency will lead its way to even more acts of anti-Semitism that may be less overt, that may be less subversive than this. There is no excuse for any kind of hatred against any group of people that I think that should be allowed at this university. And I cannot thank enough everyone here, Jewish or non-Jewish, for coming here and showing that you, as well as me, are tired of this and want an end to hatred, an end to bigotry, and an end to complacency. This cannot happen. I do not want this to happen again, and I doubt anyone here else would want it to happen either. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, Jeremy Schwartz. I'm the rabbi at Temple B'nai Israel Synagogue, whose building happens to be in Willimantic, but most of whose members are up here. I just want to make sure that you all know that there's a Jewish community standing with you in solidarity, doing the same kind of work of building allies and standing up for folks' rights, Jewish and targeted folks that unfortunately have been so targeted lately. The students who have spoken have been so wise and determined, and to what they said, I know that you have friends here in the local community.
Hello, my name is Edna Alich, and I'm a senior here at the University of Connecticut. 26 years ago, my parents survived the Bosnian genocide, and I for sure know how scary it is to feel hate, feel attacked because of your religion, your ethnicity, and to this day I fear going back to my country and feeling that same hatred being spewed continuously. When these anti-Semitic incidents happened to me, I felt a wave of memories coming back of the fear my parents fear, and of my Jewish brothers and sisters that may feel that way as well. And I'm really nervous right now, so sorry if I'm like shaking a little bit. But when these anti-Semitic incidents happened, I felt that fear as well, because I understand what it feels like having your sense of self, your well-being being at risk. But I want you to know that I stand as an ally for you guys, and I wanted to know how strong and how amazing and beautiful the Jewish religion, people, the ethnicity is. And even in my country of Bosnia and Herzegovina, you can see the lasting effects and the beauty of how much it has held. I don't know if many of you know, but the Sarajevo Haggadah that has survived so long since Spain and since the expulsion of Jews from Spain. But that shows your strength, it shows your courage, it shows how much you guys prosper, and it shows that you guys can continue on. And I want you to know that we all are here to show that support and to help you to continue on, and to be there when you need a helping hand, to be there when you need a shoulder to cry on, to be there when you just need a vent and rant about how horrible that you have to go through, how horrible that it feels when you don't feel like you can be safe in a country that says it's the country of safety, of freedom of expression, but that freedom of expression shouldn't be at the risk of your life, shouldn't be at the risk of your safety, or the risk of your religion and religious expression. So I hope you all guys, if you need anything, if you need a shoulder to rant on, to cry on, I'm right here. And thank you so much for everyone showing up And I hope you guys all who can continue this and make changes to the university that can show that we can be a community that loves and is built off of love and not violence. Thank you.
I'll give another minute to see if anyone wants to come up. But this time I wanted to let you guys know of our event tomorrow night at 7 p.m. All right, so our event tonight on Zoom at 7 p.m. where you'll be able to hear from a Holocaust survivor and also have a Q&A. The link to register for it is in our Instagram bio. It's just at UConn Hillel. Love you guys there to continue to educate yourselves and to engage in such a deep and meaningful conversation. All right, so other students. So I'm going to hand it over to Eliza from Stand With Us to say some words.
Thank you so much, Dory. Hi, my name's Eliza Canner. I am a UConn grad. I graduated in 2018, and I loved being a Jewish student here at UConn. I felt so safe. I felt so welcomed. I went to Hillel to hang out, to celebrate Jewish holidays, to bring my non-Jewish friends in and share about what it means to be Jewish. I work for Stand With Us. We are an international nonprofit organization with the goal to combat anti-Semitism across the globe. And I just have to say thank you. I have to first say thank you to the students who put this event on and who are so bravely standing up to anti-Semitism here on campus. Thank you. I also have to say thank you to the staff at Hillel, the staff at Chabad, and all of the educators here on this campus, the professionals here at this campus, who are supporting the students and saying enough is enough. And lastly, I see a lot of faces here who maybe have never been inside of Hillel, who maybe have never celebrated a Jewish holiday, who have never had a conversation of what it feels to be Jewish, what it means to be Jewish. And I want to thank you all for being here. You are our allies, as each of the students were saying. It is so important that you all show up. And today you showed up. At Stand With Us, we believe that education is the road to peace. And by educating yourself today, you are taking that oath that you believe in peace. So thank you.
All right, so I just wanted to say again that you can join us tomorrow night at 7 p.m. To hear a conversation with a Holocaust survivor and have a Q&A with him as well. So please join us for that very, very meaningful conversation by registering at the link in our Instagram bio, which is at UConn Hillel. Once again, I cannot thank you all enough for attending and standing up against anti-Semitism. This was an amazing testament to the allies we have on campus and the strength of the Jewish community on campus. While a great first step, this cannot be the end of our activism, and I hope to see you all continue your efforts to fight anti-Semitism as well as all other forms of hate and bigotry. Thank you so much to everyone who helped put on this event, everyone who spoke, and each of you for coming here. I just wanted to let you guys know to exit out the sides of the lawn, but make sure that you did give us your contact information so that if we do need to do any